This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. 3, 2, 1. And welcome everybody to this episode of Coming Home with John Allen. I am your host, John Allen. Before we get started with my good friend Raymond here, I want to tell you all that I thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you even more for watching. Look how cute we are. You wouldn't see that if you were not watching on YouTube. You guys are all over the place on the podcast. On the podcast platforms, Spotify, iTunes, and whatnot. But I want to see more of you on the YouTube channel. Like I say, that's the only place where you can see how beautiful we are here. So go to that YouTube channel. Please remember to like, to comment. Remember to follow and subscribe wherever you're watching or wherever you are listening. Now, I'm going to turn things over to Raymond in the sense that Raymond is here for a specific purpose. He's got a school project. Unlike me, this man is interested in furthering his brain power. He's taking a continuing education, and we're going to talk about music, but music in a little bit, in a specific way. Yeah. Tell us, Raymond, and thank you for being here, man.
Well, thank you for allowing me to come.
I want to say this, Raymond is a good friend. He's a family friend. He knows my wife and children. He's been in this home. He's been on my show twice.
I have? Yeah, I have. Yeah, during the lockdown. Yeah,
what a great experience. You see, he remembers it so well.
No, because I was sitting in my studio and you were sitting down
that's
here.
Correct.
We did it online.
But this is, even though I've known Raymond for a couple of years now, this is the first time he's been in my studio. So this is fun.
That's true.
It's good to have you here, man.
Such a nice space you have here, John.
Thank you.
Glad I could come down here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is, how should I put it? I called you because you're the guy who lives off of doing podcasts. And I have this task at school for my education that is super open, super wide. I could choose whichever medium I wanted to represent it. Yeah. And I read the word podcast and I'm like, I want to do this with John. Because we've been talking about doing this kind of stuff for a long time. Yeah. And just sitting down and have a talk. And the topic is really, I think it strikes home with many of the things that we've talked about already.
Sure, it's very relevant for us within our friendship. Absolutely.
So to put it like in the Norwegian words first, and you can probably translate whatever it means into American, but it is oppgave I mangfold og kulturforståelse med fritt valgt medium. And it's sort of, the task is huge. How would you translate that to me?
The task is in relation to diversity within music and the different cultural viewpoints that music represents. That's how I would translate that.
Yeah. That's probably, that's it.
It's a very interesting topic.
It is, it's super huge.
Well, it is, and we were talking already, and I got so interested before, we were just kind of like doing a mic check a few minutes ago, and just that short little 5-minute conversation about the different angles from which musicians, and probably not even musicians, we're thinking also about the listener, the different viewpoints where they see music and how it's interpreted. Yeah. And we can hear that, if I'm doing a Samisk yoik, you will hear that I am not Samisk.
That's true.
If a white man from Scandinavia is playing Delta blues, you will hear that there's that variation, that this is not a black man.
And this is what gets me, you know, because this was our entry point into that discussion. Because I'm a musician, I play music.
A darn good one, by the way. I saw this man's concert last weekend. It was excellent.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
I just had to throw that in.
Yeah, I like it. Don't mention Elderwoods by any means. It's okay.
Who?
What? But the thing is, I have a lot of friends. Ronnie, the bass player and drummer, studio drummer in my band.
From Brazil?
From Brazil, actually. Ronnie Olsen, I work with him as well, and we listen to a lot of music. I play a lot of music to him. And my take when I play music is like, okay, this is some band I know, or this is something I'm making, and I'm in my head I'm thinking, this sounds really American, or I'm gonna this is Americana sounding stuff, and whatever I throw at him, if it's Norwegian, he goes, oh, that's Norwegian. And it's not a matter of of dialect. Like it's not the pronunciation of words.
No, he's talking about the actual performance of the music, the instrumentation of it all. Yeah.
And that's got me really curious about how could you tell that if you remove like the idea of pronunciation and all of that, like the words of it, how can you tell that music is even? Because it's not a matter of Scandinavian music; it's a matter of Norwegian music.
Right.
It separates between Sweden
broken down.
and
There's a difference. And I hear this in pop music. When I hear Swedish pop, I right away that guy or that lady is Swedish. I just know it.
What's going on?
And that is such a deep question.
Yeah.
It's 3 words. What's going on? But it is much, much deeper than those 3 words, because what is it that's going on? It is a...
I get, just to be clear, I guess someone has been doing some research on that. There are probably tons of pages and articles about it. I've read some of them, but I really haven't found anyone who can pinpoint what it is, besides the general idea of, well, there's a history from ABBA and the touch of everything. But in the end, we're neighbors. We're with the Danish, with the Swedish, with the Norwegian. We're sort of, we see possibly in the world as one, but we, especially Norway, has deep ties to America.
Yeah.
Coming off of the war and everything. Yeah. We're not going to dwell into that. But
although that is a significant factor, I've always thought that World War II and the aftermath, the buildup from World War II, has, to me, there's a very distinct, there's a more dense contact between Norway and the United States than Sweden or Iceland or Denmark. That's just the way it is. There's a historical thing that did something to that Norwegian culture that made it more homogenous with the American culture in many ways, not just musical. So I think that's a significant point.
That's true, because we are a seafaring nation.
Yes,
and we have before the Second World War as well. We have deep ties to the U.S., but after Second World War, we have like the Marshall help. And along with that came a lot of that American culture to appreciate, and seeing it in England as well. You have the story way back when you had the birth of rock and roll and everything. Yeah. We're going to touch into the Beatles later, I hope.
No, we certainly can do that. But I start smiling because everyone who comes on my show and brings up the Beatles, it turns into not an argument. We're not like throwing hands or anything, but I always push back.
Yeah, you can push back. I'm just going to bring it in there because
but the thing is it ties right into what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it does.
This cultural viewpoint, the cultural interpretations of music, and how we can tell whether I almost said whether something is authentic or not, but I'm not trying to say anything bad about a white guy who tries to do the blues or a black guy who tries to do country, but we're going to talk about the black country thing as well. But there is a certain authenticity that is very much tied to culture. And if you're outside of that culture, it does do something with the sound.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing I'm
as well
lacking.
As the perception.
Yeah. Maybe that's the notion that I'm sort of not catching up on. That we're talking about like Norwegian music. Let's get back to that because we're going to sidetrack a lot. Yeah. But so just to cut straight to the question, why? How can you tell that music is Norwegian? Ronny has tried, and he has some pretty good thoughts on it. Because we have done some stuff in the studio, and it's about he's Brazilian. I'm going to hear you out first, and then I'm going to give my points.
Well, I think it's a cultural thing. And then if you are a musician or a music lover, because you don't have to be a musician to hear these nuances and these differences. You can just be a lifelong music lover, and you're going to hear it. And I think it is that almost unanswerable thing called culture. Let's take my example, or let's take me as an example. I grew up in the church, a black church in the United States, so that I have an unfiltered, a pure recollection of gospel in its purity. Gospel comes from where? Gospel comes from the field hands, the slaves of the United States. That's very specific.
Yep.
So if you're singing or playing gospel and your roots are not tied to that, my roots are tied to that in the sense that I grew up hearing it in church, a church that was 99.999% black. So it becomes this thing, you know, we are so complex. We humans, we are so complex. We have these things that happen in our brain that get stamped in there over time.
Yeah.
And I was in that church environment long enough to where I can recognize pure black gospel as soon as I hear it. And then conversely, I can hear, I call it a filtered, and please people I'm not trying to insult anything because there's some wonderful gospel music to be heard here in Norway. But when I hear it, I can hear that it's different. And I think there is a...
Let me just stop you right on
Sure,
track there.
sure, please.
Because you're sort of treating the subject like you don't want to step on anyone. But you are talking about like gospel as you perceive it as like the purest form of gospel.
Yeah.
Let me just shoot in that even though it's not like what you describe the purest form of gospel, any form of... call it a white man trying to perform gospel is still an art form.
Absolutely.
But it's not like it's not sidestepped. No, it's not the same. It is.
Exactly. It's like Picasso painted his paintings and then someone else can come along 100 years later and try to paint like him, and you will have a semblance of it, but it's going to be different. And I think the same thing can be applied to music.
Yeah, but to use your picture of it, if a guy comes along 100 years later painting in the same technique as Picasso, but not portraying himself as Picasso, there is still a value to that painting.
You're right, and that's a good point.
And that's my point to it, that if someone like in Norway in 2022 has a gospel show, obviously the gospel term has been made into an entire genre of music. So it's about having the need to put it somewhere, like to place it historically, genre-wise. I don't think anyone sits there thinking, I can step into a church and be a gospel singer, but they're performing their version of the gospel songs.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
I do, and I would agree with that. It's basically just because you know, we can look at, for example, if we think of the blues, that's also a very black thing. But there are many excellent white guitarists who have their foundations in the blues, and they're doing their interpretation of it, and it's a beautiful thing.
On its own.
On its own, yes. But at the same time, as beautiful as it is, you can hear, you can feel that there is something different in it. I think if you are an open soul, you know, if your body, your very being sucks in art and you feel music, you don't just listen to music. You don't have to be a musician to be this. If you feel music when you hear it, there's just something ingrained in you that you will pick up on those things, especially if you know the history of it. Because I'll give you a good example, and here's how important music history is when it comes to noticing these differences. I put a post up on Facebook about a week ago. I cannot remember the gentleman's name. A young black guy. He did a master's study on the banjo and its African roots.
I saw that one, yeah.
And
I didn't get to read it yet, but I saved it. Yeah.
And many people, many friends of mine who are musicians, well-accomplished musicians, sent me messages both online but also privately. Damn, John, I didn't know the banjo was African. Well, it is, and I knew that, and a lot of people did, but a lot of people don't. And I think that some of these musicians, having seen that article about this man's study on the banjo now, because they are so receptive to art, you know, they're the kind of people who look at a painting and get chills or maybe even cry, or they can hear a song and maybe get chills or even cry just because of that song. People like us are going to feel the difference even more when we know the history behind it. So I think history is a very important aspect as well. Ronnie, I don't know Ronnie as well as you do, but I do know that he's a true student of music.
Yeah.
He knows.
He's actually grown up in a Catholic church, like singing, choirs, and everything. So
it's in his blood.
Yeah.
It's in his blood. So when you have that kind of a background, or if you're someone who is very receptive to music, you just feel it. I mean, I'm not giving a very filled out answer as to why we can feel the difference or hear the difference, but we just do. I believe it's part of the human experience. I think we were meant to feel these things. You can go back to the cave drawings that you'll see in different places in Europe, Asia, and Africa of, ancient humans sitting with what? A drum or a wooden flute or something. So this music thing, I believe at one point had more of a spiritual meaning than it does now. That's why we get chills. When we hear
from the get-go, from the start, for sure.
So,
and that's kind of I'm gonna draw it back into Norway now, because we're going deep into the south, to say. But so you're talking about the reason you can tell that music is Norwegian and not Swedish. It's about the feeling of authenticity.
I think so, but also the Norwegian musician's attitude is different.
Yeah.
From what I understand, from my experience, I think a lot of people will agree with this. If I'm going to criticize and generalize Norwegian musicians, my generalization or my criticism would be that Norwegian musicians are not ambitious enough.
That's probably true. Yeah.
The talented guitarist who plays as if he has 12 fingers instead of just 10, but he'll choose to play as if he only has 8 fingers instead of 10.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you. Yeah.
The excellence.
Is that like, because you know this term,
and I can hear that Norwegian musicians are holding back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I'm getting to that point as well about that holding back stuff. But
there's a certain free feeling in Swedish music, whether it's rock, pop, whatever.
Yeah.
The Swedes they're just smile on their face and they're letting it go, whereas the Norwegians are more pulled back. I can hear it.
Yeah. That's actually that's a super interesting point, because it falls back to a discussion I had earlier this week with a friend of mine about this whole term of cap in hand. You're standing with your cap in your hand, and you're sort of excusing yourself.
Yeah.
And Norwegian as a wholesome we've been raised in this manner. We let people pass us. If you're in line to get on a tram or somewhere, we'll let people pass us.
Yeah.
So, okay, it's probably my turn next.
Yeah.
So maybe that's, I don't know what you call it, like we're sort of holding back. It's we're not flamboyant.
There you go. You're not as flamboyant. You're not as expressive.
No.
And
that's interesting, because to put it in the terms, when I'm in my studio with Roni, and he's Brazilian and he's all into rhythms and stuff.
Yeah.
So I play my stuff to him and he goes like, and I'm like, hold on. We don't need to fill every blank.
This is more boom,
noise.
Boom, cha. Boom, boom, cha.
Yeah, but not only boom, boom, cha. I mean, it's not 4 flats, but it's more a matter of, I don't know if I draw from my northerner, I don't want to call it spirituality, but it's more of that holding back stuff you're talking about. I don't want to fill every room with noise.
Right.
I want to sort of let the air breathe between the notes. I want to me, like percussions and drums and stuff. It's super nice when they like push and really drive stuff. I love that as a like from a rock scene.
Yeah.
But at the same
and
time,
you've been there. You've done the rock thing.
I've done the rock thing. I'm still doing the rock thing, you know, and even in Elderwoods, there are certainly elements of rock and pushing stuff forward.
Elderwoods, by the way, you guys need to check them out on both Instagram and Facebook. Elderwoods, it's a great band. All these guys in the band are my friends, and YouTube. Thank you. These guys are my friends. I love them dearly, and they're all extremely talented. And it's some beautiful music that they're putting out. And the Elderwoods are led by this gentleman here. He's the vocalist and driving force behind it. So I just want to plug that for you.
Yeah, thank you. I love a sneak commercial coming in there. And you're actually a big part of Elderwoods as well. I mean,
thank you.
I don't think we'd been where we're at if you hadn't been American.
Well,
to put like what we're talking about culture, you know, if you hadn't been your American self and saying like, wow, man, this is super, this is fantastic, you need to put it out there. And I'm like, nah, I don't know if the people like it and everything. And you remember this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is what culture is all about, you know.
Yeah, and it bleeds into the music. It bleeds into the performance of the music. You know, again, it's not less than. It just becomes different when. Yeah, it's such a diffuse answer, but I truly believe that if you are a music lover, you can feel it. You just know, okay, that's not a black gospel singer, or that's not a psalmisk yoik. That's someone doing a psalmisk yoik, which is two totally different things. Same thing with blues, same thing with gospel, same thing between Norwegians and Swedes, or Norwegians and the Danish. There's just a different feeling. I think the Norwegian reservedness, the Norwegian concept of being careful and quiet, even with a more upbeat rock band, that carefulness and that quietness is still in the culture. It's still in the genes of those musicians, and it comes out in the music.
That was sort of my thought going into this as well, speaking to a lot of people about this phenomenon, because it baffles me. You know, I'm playing a band, I think, how can anyone tell that these are Norwegians? And it's like straight on, this is Norwegian. So it's it like, I can name several bands, but that doesn't have like an effect to our discussion right now. It just, why pick Norwegian when you could pick like any other country to sort of put it in? You know what I mean?
No, what do you mean by that?
No, but I mean, if I'm doing a song, like I made myself, and I'm thinking, this sounds like something I know, and I sort of go for that feeling of that song I know that originates from, let's just say, the US, and I do my thing and I play my song, and I play it to someone, and during the course of discussion and talking about it, it'll be clear that, okay, but I could tell that this is a Norwegian song. It's not a Scandinavian song, it's a Norwegian song.
It's Norwegian,
and I've had it's interesting thing, this internet thing that you could put something out there either on YouTube, or that's a whole different discussion about culture. This is going to be a long night. But to put things out there, I have like songs on Spotify, I have songs on with both my bands, a rock band called Mudrod and Elderwoods. And this last song I released, We Understand.
Beautiful song.
Thank you. It's on YouTube, and this guy was texting me from somewhere in the US, I guess. I didn't check to get back, but I checked the town name where he was from, because he wrote it in his profile, and it's certainly not Sweden. And we talked about it, and he goes, well, I knew straight away that you guys weren't American.
And this guy was in the States.
And it got me thinking, you know, we didn't go deep into it. He just like, I love the way your music sounds. So there was obviously a lot of back and forth in that discussion, but to the end of it, it was like, okay, I knew you guys weren't Americans. That got me sort of spiraling down this chain of thoughts. Why do you place music in people? And you're talking about authenticity and the deep where soul music comes from, and we're going back to Africa and everything. And at the same time, I have my deep roots originated from the Sápmi, from the way up north.
Yeah.
Not to compare in historical context at all, but there is, when we're talking about Norwegian music, and this should apply to like northern Sweden and Finland as well, but that down low to earth, like history, shines. Maybe it shines through. You've been living up north. I mean, you've been living way up north.
That's
you know
that's
this stuff.
Snoopy's roots, and her family is up there. She's Samisk as well. She's not musical at all, though. So let's just leave her out of the conversation. But no,
have you given her a drum yet? Like the big Rooney drums you could play? Yeah,
so she
put
might
a hex
engage in a little gunning.
Yeah.
She's a beautiful thing, but she scares me too at the same time.
Well, I love northern Norwegians do that.
But we're kind of joking about it, but there is something within Norway. There's also different aspects, and one of them is that northern Norwegian Sami culture. And while I don't know too much about Samisk musical influences, I can't help but believe that the rather dynamic difference of the Sami culture from the traditional Norwegian culture, that difference there is certainly enough to influence your musical ear, your musical soul, if you will. So there's also that in your, talking about you personally, there's also that in your personal musical expression. It's a cultural thing. If I can swing it back to me again as an example, and not that I'm this great musical phenomenon,
you go. I mean,
but
you
I
deserve
do know.
it.
Well, but I do know that the music that I put out there, it hasn't been a lot so far, but the music that I put out there, I know it's different. It's up to the listener to judge whether it's better or worse, but it is definitely different than anything out there because I'm in a very unique situation. I'm a musician who is a Black American. That Americanness, that Blackness, plus the fact that I've been here in Norway for 20 years, soaking in different influences. And when you mix all of that together, that's a different sound, which is going to give a different feeling.
That's true.
And it can be so dramatically different from anything out there that people, until they see my face, they're not going to know I'm a Black American. They're just going to think this is a guy that's doing something totally different from what other people, these weird harmonies that I do on top of acoustic music and stuff. That's not gospel. That's not soul, but it is. If you listen, there's elements of that in there. And I think you, with your northern background, and then there's other big name Norwegian musicians from up north who sound different than other Norwegians who are more oriented around Oslo.
That's true.
There's just there's also an internal difference, and you can hear it.
And that is what gets me, because I don't get it. That's the thing. I can't put my finger to it, but I've been living in the music industry for 25 years, like as a sound engineer and touring and working with artists. I can tell the difference between obviously music and the way things sounds and how they approach, but at the same time, something new is still something new. Whether it comes from the west of Norway, because we're talking about northern Norway, but same time you have like these deep fjords out in the west that people have lived in isolation for years. Like not now, but back in the days. So
well, even so now to a certain degree. But you see, that isolation and we can even bring in the Norwegian language. There's first of all, I'm very proud that I speak Norwegian, but that pride comes from my fascination with how dynamic the Norwegian language is. You guys have dialects that are drastically different.
Yeah.
And these dialects are also personality traits.
That's true. That's true.
It is. You know, It's almost
we're
like,
perceived differently.
yes, yeah.
According
But,
to
well, not only are you guys perceived differently, you do live differently. You do think as an outsider, as a foreigner who's here as a guest.
Interesting.
And my observation.
Now we're digging deep into it. I love it.
Well, but my observations of Norwegians are very. You guys are just different. You get a certain distance north, and it is just an entirely different. Again, with my wife, with her roots being from up north, she is so different. She really sticks out. She really stands out here down south where we live. And then you've got the Western, and then you've got the Southern, and the people just think different. They live different. They speak dramatically different. And all of those things contribute to that musical receptiveness. And if you receive music in a different way, you're going to perform it in a different way. And there's the noticeable difference. Norway, I believe, is such we're right next to Sweden, and up north we're right next to Finland, but we're still isolated. It's still a very walled off way of thinking and living. You Norwegians are it's almost an insult that people combine you with and just say Scandinavian. You guys are so different, and it comes out in the music.
But maybe that it struck me now that you're talking about dialects and the way we perceive music, but every dialect has its own rhythm and tonality. And maybe that sort of musical difference comes from our dialect and the way we perceive words and pronunciations and
absolutely
like rhythmic language.
Because in this manifests itself in the USA also, because we have different dialects in the USA, and when you look at
I was thinking about I mean there's a huge difference between like Florida and Chicago.
Sure, absolutely.
For sure.
And then there's also a racial difference between black and white. So therein lies the that nuance within gospel music, soul, modern rap, R&B. When you speak so differently from what is considered normal, the basic, Midwestern white way of speaking, and then here you are, a black person speaking Black American English, of course you're going to sing different, which is then going to bring a different feeling to the music.
Flavor to it,
Different flavor.
It's true.
I could sing, yeah, yeah, come here, everyone, right? Or I could say, yeah, yeah, come on, everybody. Big difference, right? There's a different feeling. You notice I sang the one a little more soft, but I put a little more punch in the second one because that's more real to me in the sense that it's more tied into what I grew up hearing in that black church. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So that's the path that was laid out in front of me, and each step through my life, I'm picking up pieces of that, which then get held, waiting for that moment when I'm going to write a song, sing a song, or perform a song. And it's the same thing with you guys here in Norway. You guys walk your paths, you pick up these things that you take into your soul, and it comes out in your music, and people hear it. You guys maybe don't hear it because that's what you're used to, and that's what you're used to. But an outsider listening will just pick up on that immediately.
And that is the basis. I love how you sort of just spun that into it, because that is the essence to me of that whole musical understanding, cultural understanding of music. My revelation, my big eye opener when it came to music. I've been playing music several years, and been writing music and performing music. One of my biggest moments, and I've worked with tons and tons of international artists as a sound engineer, and I've stood by them, and we've been touring together and stuff.
That's a great line of work, man, especially when you love performing music, being a sound person, being back all that equipment, and you actually get to hear and see what these professionals are doing. Yeah. That's got to be an influence.
That was actually one of them. My first sort of aha moment when it came to
was when you saw aha?
No, not at all. But actually, it was when I started working with this Swedish artist called Rebecca Kariot. And she is an amazing artist, and she's done tons of stuff. But she lives in Sweden. She's from northern Norway. She's from Lofoten, originates from that, and she lives in Sweden. And her husband is American.
Okay.
Plays bass in her band. And I started working with her. We toured did some stretching in Europe. But the way the Swedish music industry revealed itself to me, the way I saw it, like that, there's a whole different sort of, come, let's get this working together. Let's do this together. We are not like doing support band and headlining. We're doing split gigs. I mean, we're both into this, and they have this room of rooting for each other. If you have like a band and you go like, it's okay to say, man, you guys are great.
Yeah.
But come to Norway, it's more like, okay, but we're headlining, you're supporting, you only have 20 minutes, don't overstep it.
I have a story about that.
And
I'm going to tell this after.
That really got me thinking. That was sort of my first influence when it comes to music outside of Norway.
But is it because the market is bigger in Sweden that
probably
people feel less threatened by other musicians?
Probably.
Because it's a bigger market.
Yeah.
Here,
they're more international in Sweden to that point.
Yeah,
and getting back to that isolation part we talked about.
Yeah.
So
here, it's such a small market. I've seen that jealousy thing. I've seen that opening act being treated like crap. I have two stories. Well, actually, I only have one because I don't want to get somebody in trouble. The one story, this is way back in 2005 or 6. It was right before we moved north. We had a big gig. For us, it was a big gig. Me with my band, Loyal Oak, some good friends of mine. And we opened for Trangfødsel.
All right.
Norwegian band, for those of you back home.
We'll bleep that out when it comes.
Very popular band at one point. I think they're still out there.
Yeah, they're still around.
And very popular in the 90s especially. But at that time, they were still relatively popular. And we had done our sound check, and we're hanging out in the backstage area. And here comes Trangfødsel. And I was like, oh, cool, I get to meet these guys.
Yeah.
And they all had these stone faces, and they said, okay, we're here, get out. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. They were speaking Norwegian, but we're here now, get out. They tried to kick us out of backstage.
Right.
And that was the attitude that they had as the headliner, was that we as the opening band we're just not worthy to be backstage. And that was an eye-opener. And since then, I've had a couple more personal experiences and several anecdotes from other music friends that I have that is very typical.
But is that typical Norwegian?
Typical Norwegian.
Typical
Norwegian. And I think it's because of the market.
But also in my head, I would think that sort of falls into the Norwegian picture of how rock star, to put it like that. Like,
well, I think
from our sort of Americanized point of view, that is how we expect that big band is supposed to act.
But see, now here's an interesting thing though, because I think you're right. I think that it is it's a false view of what that classic American rock and roll thing is.
Yeah.
It's misinterpreted by some of these people, but within that misinterpretation is also an effect on the music that they play, because some Norwegian artists go to that cliche rock sound or that cliche pop sound because they were trying to emulate that American thing. And you hear that. I'm going to name another band, and I'm not going to bleep it out because, we're just giving opinions here.
Yeah.
Do you remember the band Jimstark?
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful album. Was it their first album? It was at least their most popular, around 2004 or 5.
Fantastic. Yeah.
That album is beautiful. Very well produced, great musicianship, but the absolute worst lyrics I've ever heard on a professional album in my life.
Ouch.
Every single line on every single song, it looked like they opened a book or went into a computer program called American Music Cliches, and they just pulled out one line and just put it together. It didn't make sense. There was no story within the song, but and it was so American cliche that it if the music other than those lyrics wouldn't have been so beautiful, the album would have flopped. But it was beautiful. But as a lyricist myself, I get nauseated. Under that beauty brings me nausea because those lyrics are so cliched. And you see even some top Norwegian bands like Hjemstark at that time will go to that American music cliche thing, and you will hear it in their sound. You'll hear it in their lyrics. We're not talking so much about lyrics, but you also hear that in the sound where they, if they're going to play the blues, it's got to be dun 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 dun, and it's just straight to the cliche.
Yeah.
Same thing with the rock, same thing with the pop. Very much so with Norwegian rap. Oh my gosh!
Don't get me started.
Thank goodness.
I was thinking about touching into the Norwegian gangster rap scene.
Well, I was going to say, thank goodness they're wannabe gangsters and they're not the real thing. So I dare to criticize Norwegian rap, but I think it is so cliche it's almost laughable.
We have a couple of honorable exceptions in Norway.
I have to say, in all of this, in all of these opinions that I'm giving, even if I criticize the band, I criticize Hjemstark, but Hjemstark has done so much more than I have. So what can I say?
Yeah.
But this is just my opinion for the value of this discussion here. I will say that I believe that Norwegian rap is nothing but a cliche. They're trying so hard to be that American ghetto, black, you've been imprisoned at least twice and now you're going to do a rap. They're trying so hard to be that, and it's laughable. But it makes Norwegian rap stand out.
Yeah, have you seen that documentary about Norwegian rap?
Definitely,
you should. No. There's on NRK. There's a Norwegian broadcast TV. You should check it out because it's.
What's it called? I should pull that up tonight.
I'll find it.
See if you can find it.
I'll send it to you.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, because it has some interesting backside. Historical facts about Norwegian rap. But I'd
like
do agree.
I'd like to see it.
Because I work with kids, as you know, 13 to 15, 16 years old kids. And we work with music. We produce music. We use like this Soundtrap, it's called. It's online DAW. And we make music. And obviously a lot of these kids' default motivation for music is gangster rap. And
that's great.
And I hate it. But no, it's not great. It's good that they're exploring it.
Yeah, they're stepping into the music world. And
but I'm getting quite tired of hearing how tough life is in Drammen.
And here you are at Copenhagen, you live in a 10 million kroner house. And
like
life
is hard, roaming the streets.
And it's just, oh my gosh. And I meet some of these people and they I don't want to say too much, but Norwegian rappers, when you meet me or I meet you and we're talking and you're speaking English, you don't have to say motherfucker every word. You don't have to say yo. You don't have, please. But they fall into the cliches. Yeah. And just
let me just put it out there. As I'm working with kids, I'm working with a lot of kids from different backgrounds than grown-up Norwegianers, to put it like that. They don't have like a lot of family history in Norway. But to be fair, when we're talking about...
There's a joke in there. My stand-up comedian mind found a joke within that, but it's not fit for...
we're going to leave
it's
it.
It's not good podcast material.
Put it on later. Yeah, turn off and tell it. No, but the thing is, and it's a good thing because I never... They hit all the cliches when they make this, but they don't go into that. That's, I think even they realize it's too stereotypical.
Do they though?
At least in when I meet them.
They're still doing it.
I've never heard any motherfucker or anything in their songs, but it's a lot of and it's a lot of cocaine and snort and guns and stuff like that. I think they moved past that, that 80s.
They've moved past it in America, but they're stuck in that here. A certain
well, not the kids, and we're I think we're going into that because this is going to be such a long night. I have a claim that I hate TikTok, but I love TikTok.
I'm there as well. Yeah.
Because I hate what it's doing. That fast frequency cutting, 10 seconds of 5 seconds of immediate time span. You have to catch me immediately or you're gone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it brings old music to new listeners.
Yes.
And I have a lot of kids that experience music that I've grown up with, and they're like, "Oh, this song is so great, I love it." And,
what was that
I found it on TikTok, like what you call December by Earth, Wind and Fire. Is it?
Yeah,
that runs hard.
And the Fleetwood Mac song, "Dreams," was huge a couple of years ago because of TikTok.
Yeah.
So you have to appreciate that. You don't have to, but we appreciate that. But at the same time, there's this thing that TikTok does that waters down the music experience.
Yeah, for sure.
And it just makes it into something that I don't understand how it can even. Well, I'll say this. I'm going to make a bold statement. I don't think that TikTok does anything good for music other than in a short while a video is viral, it will expose people to a new song. Like Fleetwood Mac Dreams. When was that? 1978?
But how many years will a typical kid use TikTok?
Well, that's the thing.
I'm thinking maybe it grasps the minds of 13, 12, 10 to 15-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And I don't like what it's doing, with that time span. They need to work on their longitude, how to stay in something for a while, but
well, I look at my own two kids, 17 and 15 years old, and 10 years ago, when we would be sitting in the car, they'd be like, "Yeah, Papa, put on some music," and I would put on Rush, 2112 or Rush, the Camera Eye, these beautiful, long, complex songs, and my daughter would be back there tapping out Neil Peart's drum parts, for God's sakes. And my son would be back there, humming the melody of an Alex Lifeson guitar solo. But now, since, Instagram is there, now that TikTok is there, they have no use for any of that music. None whatsoever.
I'm going to put your mind
So what
at
is
ease.
that? Do it, please, because this bothers me. I
have an 18-year-old kid, if you want to put it like that, paraphrasing the kid. He's a young adult. But for the last 2 or 3 years, he has been really diving into the album concept and music.
Really?
And do I always agree on his musical choice? No, I don't.
I hope
but
not.
I don't. But at the same time, I'm so glad he's sort of he has the
album concept.
The album concept. But most of all, just to be able to listen through an entire song.
Yeah.
Without constantly shifting. Here's to Spotify.
But see, that's what
hating
scares
it.
me. Yeah.
That's actually what broke music.
I think so.
Spotify.
I think so.
Going to parties and not being... One of the best parties I've been to... we're jumping. But we're going to do it. One of the best parties I was to, I think it was last year or the year before. And we came into this guy's home.
Yeah.
And we were going to put on some music. And he goes, I don't have any Spotify. Okay, that's nice. What do you have? It's almost to the point that, that's cute.
Yeah.
And he goes and he opened his sort of cabinet and there's shitloads of LP records.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, I love this guy. This is going to be such a great night. Mm-hmm. And we put on an album and it just ran through. Like the ones that, and that was, I've forgotten how much I missed that.
Yeah.
The feel and the even if it were CDs, I'd be happy. I remember the time when I was young and we had CDs and we sort of you listen to one song, I want to put on something else. That was like the birth of it.
Yeah, I think for me it wasn't though. You see, I've got tons of CDs here, so I still listen to them, but I let it go. I don't like shuffle. I want to hear that CD, and I also have my LP player in the living room over there, and I want to hear that LP or that CD in the order that the artist meant it to be in, because there's a story there that these kids these days miss because of TikTok and Spotify. I have a love-hate relationship with Spotify. Thank you, Spotify, that is my avenue. That's where most of my people are listening to my podcast. So thank you.
I got to say, I have discovered tons of new artists and explored the world with Spotify.
But you and I are different. We're of that generation. We remember LPs, we remember CDs, but especially LPs where you're forced to listen in the order, and that whole process of lifting the needle and flipping the record onto the next side. You and I are from that generation, so we can listen to Spotify. I think it was you who told me about Rival Sons.
Yeah.
And you suggested a song. Before I listened to that specific song, I found out what album that song is on and listened to the whole album straight through on Spotify. But that's only because I'm from that generation and I know the value of that. Yeah. I know what that experience will give me.
Yeah, and as a musician, I would say that to put together an album, that is hard work.
It certainly is.
It's not only putting together the songs for the album, but deciding how should this story go? The entire story.
As a lyricist, I'm very, very preoccupied with the song order.
That's true.
But then there's also some beauty and some specific challenges if you're just going to put a single out.
It's true.
A single is so naked. You can't cover a single with better songs on either side of it. It's just there by its lonely, naked self. So the challenge is to make that single as powerful as you can. And powerful doesn't mean loud or rock or whatever, but you want the production to be as good as it can, the lyrics to be as good as it can. So there's some beauty in just putting up a single that people are going to hear.
And it's super dangerous.
Well, it is. You can make or break yourself with a single.
That's true. I'm gonna flip the ball and go back to where we started a little bit, because we talked about the authenticity of music and where it comes from and Norway and everything, and we're gonna leave that because it's gonna get too deep. But at the same time, we talked about how music has value on its own.
Yes.
Even though it's not. I said my first big musical eye opener on a personal note was that meeting with as an artist. Yeah. My second one was going to the US with this gospel choir, Norwegian gospel choir, pretending to be gospel singers.
Yeah, you did that.
To put in,
that's a couple 3 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was right when we first met, actually.
Yeah,
if I remember right.
I think we met up before that.
We did, but not too long before that.
Not too long, no. And we went to Chicago, and we went down south of 67th Street. You know the meaning of that?
I do. I sure do.
And went to a lot of churches.
There's another good joke in there, but again, it's
not fit
for.
We're gonna leave that.
but I'm sure that was a learning experience for you.
Absolutely, and being welcomed into these churches and house of worship, and seeing you were talking about 99.9% black people in the church, and this were the kind of churches we met.
Yeah,
and it's rather poor areas,
very poor. You would think you were in a third world country in some of these neighborhoods.
Yeah,
as I remember it, anyway. Yeah,
and that was an eye opener, both on an human platform, but also musically.
Sure.
So it sort of led me to the point of making the single that was released. That entire trip it started something in me. Yeah. Some idea of feeling the need to accomplish something.
So that cultural being dipped into that cultural experience right there, it affected you to your
to my core,
to your musical core.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I can't thank the people who brought me along enough. It was even though that wasn't like the idea of the journey or the tour. It sent me home with that.
It was a pleasant side effect.
Yeah, it was, and meeting the people and everything, and the way I got to. The further away the incident is, the longer it has been since I was there, it still grows on me.
Sure.
I still draw from it.
Yeah.
And after Chicago, we went to Nashville, and that was just a different side of the entire picture.
Yeah.
And that entire like pilgrimage for me was like putting me into, and this brings me back to
pilgrimage. That's interesting that you say that, because now you're kind of at least dipping into that pool of spirituality. Pilgrimage implies spirituality.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, interesting.
Except grown, as you well know, I'm born. I'm going to regret bringing this to the table.
We love regrets.
Yeah. I was born the same day as Elvis died. We talked about Elvis Presley, and we're not going to dig into that discussion at all. I told you I was going to regret this. But the thing is, I grew up with sort of this fascination for American music, and you can say a lot of things about Elvis, but at least he brought music to the masses.
He had the influence and and you can't deny that.
And I'm raised on that, and to me, that music, that kind of music, that gospel soul thing, is sort of embedded in me.
Yes,
from really early age, and to me, I always said that, on my 50th birthday, I'm gonna stand outside Graceland. Just to be able to be there. I have this dream about road trip starting in Chicago, going through all the places, and ending up like down in New Orleans and stuff.
Yeah.
Just to and that would be a pilgrimage for sure for me. But to bring it back where I was starting, we talked about music, and it led me to the point that I have to do my music. I have to do whatever I do, and it's not soul, it's not Americana, it's not country, it's not Elvis, it's me. And the realization that, and you touched that point that brought me there, this is me. And I can say that, I will always meet people who say, I don't like your music. And I would say, to me, that's fine, because nobody else is writing my songs. Nobody else is doing my music. And I've started saying this to the kids I work with, if you play music, I wish someone told me this 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody else is writing your song. You can do, it's your words, it's your pronunciations, your, like...
To me, putting music out there that people like, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
But putting music out there, that's a win.
Sure. Yeah.
Putting it out there and people like it, bonus. Putting music out there, period, whether others like it or not, mission accomplished.
Yeah. It's a nice... I won't lie. It's a nice thing when people like my music.
Absolutely.
And my absolute favorite moments are the ones that people come up to me and say that I draw this from your music.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But do you agree with me though that the for me anyway, there comes an enormous satisfaction. I get chills thinking about it. If you probably can't see it because of the lighting, but I get chills thinking about it and talking about it. But that satisfaction that I get when I make a new song. Yeah. I got some music from Henning last night, and if things go with my schedule today, which is kind of up for grabs about what's going to happen for the rest of the day. But if I get to sit down and write, I'm going to write a beautiful song to that piece of music that Henning sent me. And I know already, because I've experienced it so much, that once that song is written, it's almost that the day after I write a song, I don't even remember it anymore because I have gotten that enormous adrenaline rush, those endorphins, the chills going down my spine, and the good feeling. I've accomplished something now, and then I almost deliberately put it out of my mind because maybe this is a weakness of mine. I don't want to say I don't want to experience anyone give me their opinion of that song. I just want to sit with my own feeling. I don't want to say that, but maybe that's what that is.
Yeah.
Because the mission is accomplished as soon as the song is written. As soon as it's written.
On that note, it was really nice of you showing up to our concerts last week, opening with your song with your lyrics.
And that thing, that. Well, here we go. You're touching on it. So there's this feeling of enormous accomplishment once the song is written for me, and then I forget about it and don't even remember from one day to the next what lyrics I put on that song. But then, if this song was written for another artist, now comes the recording process, and sometimes I'm in the studio to help them and. Coach them on their English or whatever. But at some point, that recording process is done.
Yeah.
And then there's this beautiful feeling again, this new sense of accomplishment. And then at some point, I'm going to be fortunate enough to see that artist perform it live, like I did when you guys play. And then there is yet another feeling of, I had tears in my eyes when you were singing that.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
So with all of those experiences of enjoyment from that one thing that was created, I almost don't, it's not that I don't care if other people like it or not, but their possible negative opinion would blacken this beautiful tapestry of accomplishment. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I understand what you're saying because it's,
I remove myself from that. I won't be, if I'm ever at the point where newspapers are critiquing my songs, I'll never read it. I don't want to hear that. No, I don't want to see that.
But still I do.
But still we do.
Yeah, still we do because
we want that feedback. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a duality there.
Yeah. And
we don't want it, but we want that. We don't want the criticism, but we do want feedback.
I hear what you're saying, and that sort of gets me because we say it's so easy to say, I don't care, I'm doing it for my own.
But we do.
But we do. We do. And that is, let's not fool ourselves.
Yeah.
We are vain. Old people are. I mean, and to me, it's not, I'm not going out of my way to have people like me, but I like people liking me.
Sure.
And that's the thing, and
that's allowed. I think that there's no arrogance in that. I don't think there's any vanity in that.
No, but it just makes my life easier,
but
better.
Isn't that normal? That's a human thing.
I think so.
We want to be liked.
I think so. But everyone says, I don't care if you don't like me. I'm like, but you do care.
They're just trying to be tough.
Yeah. Or trying to protect themselves, though.
Or protect themselves, yeah.
Because that's probably the thing. I'm gonna bring it back to it's gonna be a 3-part episode of.
Hey man, my record is 4 hours. Do you know Espen Jørgensen?
Yeah,
I love that guy.
Yeah.
I need to get him back in. He and I spoke for 4 hours once. We were sitting right outside. There was a beautiful summer day, so I moved everything outside.
Yeah.
And we sat out there all day and spoke.
Yeah,
it took us 4 hours, man.
He's good at that, and he's got a lot of
dude
thoughts.
Is deep.
There's
the
a
dude
lot
is
of
very deep.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in his mind.
And a wonderful musician, Espen Jørgensen. You guys need to check him out also on YouTube. On YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. The guy will bring tears to your eyes with his musical pieces on acoustic guitar.
It's true.
Dude is great. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a fantastic musician. Yeah. There's not much more to say about the guy. He's a fantastic, and I read that someone said he's a Renaissance man.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's probably the best place to put him. But
besides his musicianship, he's just a good guy. He's so deep and just wonderful to speak with. I love talking to that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's definitely a thinking soul.
Yeah, for sure.
No, but back to this thing, this Norwegian thing. it can very quickly sound like criticism against the Norwegian music environment, but the Norwegian music environment is what it is, and it sticks out. I believe it is so easy to tell a Norwegian musician from a Swedish, from a Danish.
And that was sort of my landing platform now, that we can, because it's always interesting to see
it's culture.
Where does it come? It's culture, it's, and I love the idea of the notion that it is that recluses, what do you call you're pulling back, you're holding back something, and that is the Norwegian approach to it,
to life.
To life, probably, to life.
Well, I believe that one's life approach comes out in one's approach to music, definitely.
For sure,
Norway is a very different nation, so why wouldn't the music be different?
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a valid point. If you were to take away, we're sitting here speaking English, and I can hear that you're a Norwegian, but if we were to take the language away and speak the same dialect of English, I would still, in a matter of time, figure out that you are from Norway, from your body language, from the things that you choose to talk about, and how you talk about them. So if that's the case, if we accept that as a fact, that you guys stand out because of your culture, why wouldn't your music also stand out because of your culture?
I
believe the bottom.
I like the way you're thinking now.
Yeah, I think the baseline of it is cultural. You guys
and it's not good or bad. That's the thing.
No. Yeah, that's the thing. People would look at that as criticism in some spheres, but I'm just saying it as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
Norway is different. So.
I don't see it as criticism at all. I mean, it's we are.
I just shit all over Norwegian rap.
Yeah, we they just. I'm not gonna say anything. but different ain't always bad.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. We were talking about. We were going like really deep into that whole soul gospel discussion. I'm saying, okay, we're doing it as well. We have people doing soul, and I went to like travel with this gospel choir, all whites, and it's not bad.
No, it's just
the same thing is like with my music. It's my music. It's not. I'm not portraying it. I'm not saying like this is hi, I'm Ellie Woods from the deep south of the US,
Right.
But I still think that my music could have appeal.
I can give you a good example of different emulation or copying, different but good. Perfect example, 2015, Jonas Fjeld's Romjulsconcert. His concerts around Christmas. It was in 2015. Some friends of mine that I brought in, they were three. This group has like 30, 35 people, but four of them came, gospel vocalists. And they also do a lot of work with soul artists, famous people like Patti LaBelle, Whitney Houston before she passed, people like that. They've sung background for them. So I got them here, and they were with Jonas Fjeld.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was
you. That was you. Yeah.
My foray into a concert arranging in Norway, and Rita Eriksen was a guest, and I would never think of Rita Eriksen as a soul singer or an R&B singer or a gospel singer, but there were a couple spots in that show where these four male vocalists, each one of them it was almost like a vocal solo.
Yeah.
And Rita joined them for that, and my jaw hit the floor. She was hitting these gospel, soul, R&B trills side by side with these four Black Americans who not only grew up in the church, they perform this music.
Yeah.
But Rita was right with them.
That's fantastic.
And the crowd went crazy. My jaw hit the floor, and I had a new respect. And here she was, she has nothing to do with that culture, but her love of that music and her body's ability to take that in. I was talking about that, how you can actually feel the music and it becomes a part of you. Obviously, Rita Eriksen has that ability because she did it on stage.
Yeah. What great artist.
So there's an example of how music can, you can get it so much that.
And music can skip that cultural gap we're talking about.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting to, that there are exceptions. And in that moment, now I haven't heard Rita sing like that since or before, but in that moment, she was right there with these 4 Black American gospel singers, right with them, no difference. Perfect blend. And that happens. That happens. Amongst all of this Norwegianism that you can also hear. Sometimes you get somebody like Rita who is right there with the real deal.
But those are those 10 seconds of pure bliss that sort of...
I'll never forget it.
No.
I had no idea she could sing like that. And I've heard her music for almost since day one, since I first came to Norway in 2002. And I was so honored that I got to meet her and hang out with her and all this. Like, oh gosh, that's Rita Erickson. I had kind of that same experience when I met Jonas or Tadia.
Yeah.
But to meet her and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden here she comes with that performance. It was jaw dropping.
Yeah.
So you have those exceptional moments. You do. Those exceptional artists who, again, in their admiration, there's no difference when they perform it. They fit right into it.
But as you said, she's part of that generation that grew up with that Americanization of
yes,
like idolization of Americas and American music and cultural and history and everything.
Yep.
That I myself I'm a part of. But so I think maybe that gap is smaller.
Yes.
Between us.
Yeah.
But it's hard to bridge that gap alone, like on our own. Like when I'm playing with my band, it will still be our Norwegian band doing. Yeah. But at the same, we're talking about music and our American legacy. I think every European country has that American legacy on the rebound of being American music being influenced by Norwegian folk music. Yeah. And not this Irish folk music, like, because that's the blend that sort of comes out of America. You have that deep roots you're talking about, like that, and the gospel music that originates from the fields, from that work music. If you track those lines all the way, you have like the drums, you have the beating, you have. If I'm not mistaken, the drums were not allowed because they carry far. They were afraid of communication between the fields.
Well, it was,
and they had to reside to singing instead to sort of keep that morale going.
Exactly.
And then you have the introduction of forcing people into churches to sort of avoid that. The other
they were trying to wipe the Africanism out of them by putting them into the Christian.
Yeah, so they sort of took so they took these work songs and put it into that Christian.
There you go.
And then they were allowed to sing it.
Right.
So it's a super interesting story.
How all of that lined up to create this thread of music. It's really fascinating.
And I'm thinking you have, I don't know about, like, we're talking about blues music, but still blues music and country music, they originate from the same pot.
There's this commercial thing that has happened over the course of a few decades, 30, 40, 50 years, where country music has become almost an exclusively white American thing. But if you take it to where it originated, it's definitely straight out of the slave quarters in the American South. Definitely, the banjo thing that I posted, everybody thinks of that as a white country instrument. That is African, So
I got to go see that one.
Yeah, you should check it out.
Just to see the original.
Very interesting. That guy has a YouTube channel as well. And again, I can't remember his name, but if you go on my Facebook, which you can do at John Allen Official, JOHNALAN Official, at John Allen Official in one word. That's where you'll find me on Instagram and Facebook. So if you go on Facebook, you'll find that video article that I posted. It's very, very informative if you didn't know the origins of the banjo and you're curious, check it out. Definitely.
It's true.
So,
but that sort of cultural meeting between like the Western classical music and the folk music coming in from Ireland and from the Netherlands, from Norway, all these places, sort of led up to the growth of what we know today as the call it the popular culture of American music, spanning from 1910 and up.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see how that circle sort of fulfills when we pick up on that on the backside of it. You know, we sort of send our way our child, and it came back as a family.
Yeah, exactly.
to put it like that. And it's the same thing that sort of happened with. Hold on, I'm going into the Beatles now.
Here we go.
But we could go for the Stones or whomever. But it's the entire idea of that music being so powerful, affecting people on the other side of the ocean. Yeah, like because there would never be a Beatles or a Stone or whatever from out of Britain if it weren't for Cliff Richards or those old like blues rock folks. Little Richard, not Cliff Richard.
Richard, Fats Domino.
That was mine.
Those people.
Yeah, and so their background comes from listening to this music and playing that music all around Europe, and then travel back to the US, inspiring again this artist to step it up.
It's a circular thing, man.
So and that's the beauty of musical culture and to understand where music comes from. Because they weren't trying to be Americans. They were trying to be their British selves, playing their music influenced by this American sound.
I'll say this. When I look at the Stones and when I look at the Beatles, I think the Stones were quicker to tip their hat and give a salute to those old blues players that they were taking their inspiration from. I think the Stones were better at paying homage to that than the Beatles were. That is a big reason why I just don't. I mean, there's also
I got to stop you on the Stones thing. Have you seen that movie with Muddy Waters?
And Keith Richards and
the Stones come into the Trekkers Club with Muddy Waters. And you can see Mick Jagger standing beside Muddy himself, and he looks like a kid.
Yes,
he's like he's exploding with pride.
Yeah,
and that is you can absolutely see how much this means to them.
Yeah, there's another thing to compare that with is there's a video out there. It was around 1987 or 88. It was Stevie Ray Vaughan playing with. Shame on me that a black blues player played a flying V left-handed, Albert King.
Yeah.
And if you listen to Albert's original stuff and then you listen to Stevie Ray, you can definitely hear the influence. And then to see them side by side and the respect that Stevie Ray was giving to you know, and it's like a passing of the torch because the respect went both ways. Albert King, you know, they did a lot of talking while they were in between their playing. And Albert King said something to the effect of he's passing the torch on to Stevie Ray. You've got to carry this music on.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's the way it should be, because then you have the other side of it where a couple of incidences where Led Zeppelin just straight up took credit for a few Willie Dixon songs that they didn't write. Willie Dixon wrote those. But they took the song, they twisted it, and put it out there as if they had written it. And that's... And you can kind of throw Elvis into that thing as well, of an artist who didn't really pay homage to the source of their own fame. And there's a lot of not just black musicians or black music lovers who have a big issue with that when it comes to Elvis.
Have you seen that last Elvis movie?
Say again?
Have you seen the Elvis movie that came out?
No, I haven't.
You should.
I don't think I should.
You can hate
Well,
on it.
here's the thing. I'm going to do it for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
And when I say entertainment purposes, Snoopy loves Elvis. So I'm probably going to sit with Snoopy and watch that. And I'm going to drive her nuts by cracking jokes and making fun of Elvis throughout the whole movie.
I don't think you have to, because the movie does itself.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen 80% of the movie. It still sits back home. I'm going to see the rest of it. But it paints a absolutely different picture of the man.
Really?
Yeah, it
does.
Really? Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I
really,
can watch
it
it
shows.
You say that, I might be able to watch it.
It really shows where he's from. It shows the churches where he grew up, like on the far wrong side of the tracks, on the poverty houses, and it shows how Elvis as a persona was created and destroyed by this man who was sort of his manager, but
that guy was a crook.
Yeah, absolutely, all the way through, and it shows through the film, and the film is told by him.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
is it? Okay,
from his perspective.
That's an interesting twist.
Yeah, it is. So it's
okay. I might watch this.
Yeah, you should.
Watch it with a real critical eye.
Yeah,
I was thinking if I was going to watch it, it would be with Snoopy, and I would just do it just to drive her crazy.
I'm thinking to my I like the notion that if Elvis had lived longer, he would have been able to sort of break from that
possibly
cycle and speak up to where his roots are and where everything comes from. But by the end of the day, he had nothing to say about himself or for himself.
Yeah,
it was
that would be interesting to see how he would have evolved if he was still around.
But I mean that was.
I think about that all the time when it comes to Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah,
what would that guy have done?
Would we still remember him the way we do?
No,
I don't think
Definitely
so.
not.
And
Definitely not.
I've talked about this a lot of times with people, and for in regards of fame and impact, them being dead, it's probably the best thing that could have happened to the world community. I think because Jimi Hendrix would sort of, I think he wouldn't fade, but he would be like just one of these old guys who, just another one playing guitar, you know.
Yeah. But I don't think he would have just lived off of his Woodstock in early 70s.
No.
I think he still would have been developing himself as a musician. You could hear that.
Yeah, but there are a lot of musicians who lived and did that and sort of just faded into history.
Yeah.
And you look back and like, oh, these were great by the time of Woodstock or like in the late 60s, 70s. And the 80s came and they just faded.
It just faded.
And it's so weird to there's a lot of artists you could think that about. Where would you be?
Yeah, and thinking about my music tastes, the music that I draw influence from, the music that I appreciate and like and listen to the most is pre-1980. And that's regarded. Now, I listen to different genres of music, but whether it is the rock I listen to, the soul R&B I listen to, it's pre-1980 for the most part.
It's because you're old.
I think I'm an old soul, but musically I am an old soul.
Yeah.
The stuff that I prefer is pre-1980.
Well, that goes for me as well, but I sort of challenge myself to sort of constantly seek out new music, and I get a lot of miss. I do, but I get some really good hits as well. And the interesting thing is, I find a new artist, I listen to it like, this is really good.
Yeah,
and I love it, and I go, where's this from? And I find, the album is from 1995 or something like. It wasn't such a new artist either way.
What I'll do is, and I just got done crapping all over Spotify a few minutes ago, but when I'm sitting writing my book, yes, everybody, I'm writing a book,
and reading it.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, let me give a little commercial for that. If you go to my website, johnallenpod.com, JOHNALANPOD.com, and go to the homepage, you'll see a little advertisement pop up where you can subscribe to my audiobook. It's a different kind of audiobook. I'm reading one chapter at a time. It's pretty cool because I'll write the chapter, and before I edit it or anything, I'll get on this microphone right here, read it in, and then put it out there for my subscribers. So it's unedited.
That's pretty daring of you, actually. It is.
Yes, it is terrifying. It's fun, but it's also terrifying. I'll put it out there, and then I'm biting my nails. Back to this thing about will they like it?
Yeah.
I try to act like I don't care, but I'll
I'm going to do it either way.
But I will wonder: do they like this? Is this it? But I digress. When I'm writing my book, I'll put Spotify on the suggested tracks playlist.
Yeah. Dangerous
and
feature.
It is very interesting how often a good song will come up, and then I'll keep writing, but I'll look and I'll write down the name of that artist or band, and then I'll go back later, and there's some great music being made now.
There is.
Let me tell you, for all of its faults, Spotify is a great source for discovery.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something new, just go onto that suggested playlist and see what happens. See what you find there.
But I'm thinking, we can say whatever we want about Spotify, and if you track it all the way back to Napster and those kind of things, it happened. And
it happened.
And that is, and it's the same thing that happened when the LP came out, when they started pressing singles, they started pressing albums. Music has always been subject to change like this, way from when they started pressing, I don't know, like this scrolls of music that could record a piano or something, or autoplay a piano.
That was the first Napster.
Think about that. Yeah, that was the first Napster. Think about that when they talking about culture and music. What would Western movie culture what would that be like without that auto playing piano? You have that imaginary man sitting playing that piano in the back. Imagine all the piano player going like, "Oh, I hate this. This is." That's the same thing.
It really is.
They went out of work because they had this scroll that just rolls and the piano plays by itself.
If you boil it down to basics, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
So we just need to find new ways to work with music.
You're right. And the problem is we should be able to work with this Spotify thing and earn our living. Why does...
That's true.
This whole thing about about making it easy to not listen to this album in the proper order, that's one thing. We can live to learn with that. What really bothers me is the fact that the artist makes so little from these millions, sometimes tens or hundreds of millions of streams, and the artist makes next to nothing. I think that's pathetic. I think it's thievery. I think it's a shame.
That's true. And in the shadows, you have tons of other streaming services just waiting to sort of jump in and grab their shares of the market. You have everything from Apple to whatnot.
Why does Spotify take all the heat? Because there is Apple Music. They're doing
and
the
Weezer.
same thing.
There's
Why
a lot
does everybody,
because I think just as here in Norway, Spotify is the biggest one.
Yeah.
It's not that much in the world. Actually, the biggest streaming service in the world is YouTube.
Yeah.
Because if you go to whichever country is south of Denmark, Spotify is not that big. I've been traveling a bit, and I'm like, oh, you'll find me on Spotify. Spotify what? Like, is it on YouTube?
Yeah.
We went to Italy, and I was like, no, but we have YouTube. Went to Croatia, I was like, no, we have YouTube.
Yeah. You know what I love about YouTube is if you've got good sound equipment and a decent camera, you can give people a good concert experience.
That's true.
Still,
at the same time, I hate it. That comes out of COVID. What you're talking about now? I saw that on NRK yesterday.
Yeah,
they had this show going. It's probably old, but it's not COVID old. There's a lot of really, really, really nice artists who's been put some cool place. Just say, okay, you're gonna play only for us, and we're gonna record it and make a concert out of it. And I'm thinking, that is not the way live music should be experienced.
Optimally, you should be there. You should be smelling the sweat.
So why are we still doing it after COVID? Why are we still so hard pressed because I know.
I'll tell you why. Looking at it from I'm just going to butt in right here for a second. Looking at it from the audience perspective, the best way to experience it is live, right then and there, live in some venue. However, musicians are getting screwed because these venues, look at how difficult it is for the average band to book a gig.
True.
So when it's that way, looking at it from the artist's point of view, they want to be seen and heard. That's why I love YouTube. Because
that's true. If you can choose it by yourself, an
unknown artist, instead of going to some of these places back in the States, you have to pay if you want to get on that stage.
You don't have to go to the States to do that.
And
it's the same thing in Norway.
Okay, and it's disgusting. So when it's that way, that's why I love YouTube.
Yeah, that's true.
Looking at it from the artist's point of view, of course, from the audience point of view, we want to be there. We want to smell the sweat.
Yeah.
But
and from an artist's point of view, I want to feed off that response.
Well, sure, but also knowing the way it is, knowing that you can't make any money, and you have to at some point you've got to consider the finances.
And those are the biggest issue with the way Spotify and Apple Music and everyone is working now, because you could say, well, then you have to go out on the road. You have to tour, you have to play gigs. That's where you get money.
Yeah.
Now it's like, you can stream 500,000 times. Here's $100. You need to go on the road to play.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we need $500 for you to play at our place.
Exactly. And that's why I love YouTube. That's why I love the possibilities of YouTube. If you're good and if you've got great lighting and a decent camera, and quality sound, which the average person can have now
in Norway,
you can put on that YouTube. You can do it twice a week if you want. You can do it every day if you want.
Sure.
And people,
you can be all Justin Bieber, and
people will subscribe to your channel, and you'll get to a certain point, and you will make money.
That's true. That's true. But that's a lot of hard work.
It's a lot of hard work, but it's also a lot of hard work to go out playing for peanuts at venues that don't really want you there.
True.
That's a lot of hard work as well.
But if you're driven by live music, like as an artist, if your main motivation is, besides writing music and
then
playing
you have to get out there and do it live. You have to
to sort of feed off that audience and that response. It's soul killing to just be in front of a camera and play.
Sure. I miss it,
and that's why
I haven't performed live in 6 years.
I'll bring you into my next show,
and I miss it.
You'll come do that song with me, the song you wrote.
Man. Come on now.
Yeah, come on now. We have it on tape. Let's do it. That'd be a cool thing to do.
Well, it would certainly be fun, and I'll definitely say yes to that invitation.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this: I'm a better vocalist than bass player.
You and me know the story of that.
Yeah.
But I do really appreciate that you came along doing that session with us, and
I think it wasn't right for me physically. I just you know the story.
I do.
My arm is.
The result was really good in the end. So
yeah, it was. It was.
Maybe somewhere down the line we'll make something happen together.
Absolutely. But I'll definitely come on the microphone if you.
Oh man!
If you step aside, you take a lot of space on stage. Just step aside.
Step aside. Let me have the microphone. We don't need all of you. You can just go stand in the shadows.
Hey, but again, a little commercial. You guys have to go see the Elderwoods. I don't know when you guys' next gig is coming, but if you go on to the Elderwoods on Facebook, that's Elderwoods, ELDERWOODS, Elderwoods on Facebook and Instagram. And as things come up, it'll get posted, and you guys will see where they're performing. You got to come check them out.
Look for the guy with the big beard.
Look for the guy with the beard.
There's a couple of imposters out there trying to oppose us.
This is the real beard right there.
This is the guy with the beard. We're not letting that go yet.
I was impressed with your. I didn't tell you this. I gave you a lot of what I think was good feedback after that show I saw last weekend with you guys. But I didn't talk about your guitar sound. I was very impressed, man.
Fantastic.
Everybody is the casual listener at a live event is, when it comes to sound of the guitar, they're probably going to look mostly to Henning because he's playing the solos.
Yeah.
But as a student of music and as a somewhat of a musician myself, I'm listening to the whole picture, and you have a great rhythm guitar sound.
That's cool.
You do, man.
Thank you.
It just sits right in your sense of timing and rhythm. As a rhythm guitarist is excellent. So I want to give you that. I want to give you that feedback right now.
I'll put that straight into my heart.
Do that, man.
Yeah,
do
it's
that.
good.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I'm aiming for. I wasn't pleased with the sound myself, but
there were some issues, but when the sound guy got it dialed in,
just for my own sake on stage, but that is, we are always our own worst enemies, I think.
But that's good. We want to be as good as we can, It's about growth. We don't want to stay at, as we say in Norwegian, på stedet hvil. We want to keep developing.
True.
We want to keep taking steps and getting better. So that's healthy. That's healthy.
Now I remember where I was going to bring this back to let's just clap. Yeah, we need to end this.
We have 15 minutes, let's say.
15, okay. Yeah. So I'm going to bring it back, like to put it in this musical, cultural discussion and stuff again. And I'm going to, because when we talked about this thing before we met, we talked about the kids today and music and at school where the study I have, we're talking about, the kids of today, how are they using music? How are they using their music? How are they experiencing their music? And we touched that, like briefly, talked about that TikTok thing. They play like 3 or 4 seconds and they know the song. But I just read an article. My main thesis was that rock is dead. Music is dying. We're going into a time where no one is buying guitars anymore. That was like couple of 3 years ago. I read an article about how guitar companies are going down because no one's buying guitars anymore. Which sort of, they've sold a lot of guitars. There should be a lot of guitars around out there, but still. And instrument makers are going down because no one is using like acoustic or electric instruments anymore. Everything is done by computers. So the theory was that music as we know it, originating from the 50s, 60s, 70s and up, is dying. We're going into a new era, and looking back through history, this has always been happening. You have from the rocks they threw at each other in rhythmic manners to pianos and big orchestras to rock pieces with 3 persons. So I've sort of just waited for that to happen, and just acknowledge the fact that I'm gonna rise against it as long as I can, and give all the as many kids as I can the sense of creating music organically.
Yes. Yeah.
And then COVID came. Yeah. And I was like, oh no, how am I going to do this? And then I read an article again yesterday, because my theory had still been rock is dead. It's gone. Yeah. And then I read that music sales, like instrument sales, are up to a level, hold on, that has never been seen since 1964 when the Beatles
Think about it. Yeah. What a turnaround.
Yeah.
What a turnaround.
Because people have been sitting back home alone, nothing to do, picking up instruments.
Exactly.
And there are like a big surge in sales. It's amazing.
And I spend a lot of time on YouTube there's a lot of channels that I watch that are instrument based.
Yeah.
And
we talked about Rick Beato.
Rick Beato is by far my favorite on YouTube.
Fantastic guy.
The guy is the best musicologist you could find. The guy loves music. He knows music, and he knows how to teach it so that it's interesting.
Yeah. I
love that guy. But Rick is older than us. Rick is 61 years old. So he's of that generation. But what I think is very fascinating is I'm seeing guys that are, your age and younger. Some of them are in their early 20s, and they're taking that role of musicologist.
Yeah.
They're teaching music history. They're teaching the nuances of guitar and piano. They're teaching the theory, and it's making it into this package that you better be careful, because if everybody keeps going to YouTube, you're going to lose a job as a music teacher.
I'm going to be the guy who ties all the knots together into one.
But it's fascinating seeing how these people are so young, and that is so promising.
Yeah.
It's just, and this has happened, within the last couple of years because of COVID.
That's true. And out of this thing, like early days, rock and roll was predominantly male. I mean, it was like you had female rock and roll artists, but they were like, you would go, wow, cool, whenever you met one. Now, working with teenagers, I thought it was like this happened one time, but I've seen it reoccurring, that the kids don't want to be playing, especially the girls. They don't want to sit around noodling on their guitar and singing sad songs about love and life and heartbreak, and they don't want to be like singing something. They want to play rock and roll.
Yeah.
They want to play.
Isn't that cool?
It's super cool. And I had to sort of stop and think about that, because it challenges my views on where we're going.
Okay.
And based on the fact that I'm thinking, okay, we're going down south, rock is dead and live music is going under, that acknowledgement is probably a self-preservation kind of thing, that music is dying, it's in 15 years, 20 years, I'm not going to have a stage to be on because everything goes online and everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I see all these youngsters, like 14, 15 years old.
And they're keeping it alive.
And they're picking up their guitars and they're banging the drums. And like, what about playing this on? It's too soft. I want to play some rock and roll. And Arcade Fire and stuff. It's kicking. And
well, I tell you, it's you have such a great job, and I know this because one of my first jobs was as a music teacher at Guldskogen, right down the road. And when you see that your love of music is easily transferred to these kids, 12, 13, 15, 16-year-old kids, and you know that it's going to be alive, at least with this little group that you have.
Yeah.
It's very uplifting.
It is. And
it's a testament that rock may look dead, but there's somebody out there, somewhere out there is the guitar hero that we're going to see in 10 years. They're
Absolutely.
out there. We just haven't seen them yet.
I have that guy, actually. I taught that guy.
Yeah.
I met him a couple of days ago.
Well,
it's an amazing guitar player.
And it's just such a beautiful thing to see. And I think it's very easy to get caught up in, rock and roll is not dead. It's changing.
Yeah.
Guitar playing is not dead. It's changing.
True.
And it's so easy for us, especially our generation with the musical background that we have, to maybe forget that change is not necessarily bad.
And let's not we say rock and roll. Let's include basically everything that has a guitar with a sort of edgy attack to it into that box. And it includes everything from Timberlake to country music,
Yeah. And everything in between.
And everything in between, for sure. Some
funk, jazz, blues,
absolutely,
pop,
absolutely.
even pop, somewhat. Yeah.
Well, not go. Okay.
Well,
Yeah, for sure. But what is pop?
aspects of
What
it,
is
yeah, what
pop
is that?
music? I
Yeah,
mean,
what is that?
most music today is considered to be pop music. So even
That's
though
true.
it's rock and roll,
Yeah.
so it's yeah. The thing, and you say my role is being like gone, but it's not, because somebody still has to pull all these
Yes.
things together.
Yes.
Somebody needs to be the hub that sort of shows the kids that, okay, but you have all these skills. You need to
Yeah.
put it together
Yeah.
to create like this common thing,
Yeah.
and that role will always be necessary.
Right. Right.
And it's interesting to meet the kids when we talk about rock and roll, and like, and somebody comes with a song and say, we want to play this.
Yeah.
And this one kid sits down like, well, I can't sing this because it's like this. And the rest of the group goes, oh, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
And then you have an interesting discussion again.
Right.
And
right.
again, back to the cultural meaning of it, because we have such a multicultural society
Yes.
at our school that you could have like a group of 6 people wanting to play a song, and the vocalist reads the lyrics and like, I can't sing this.
Yeah.
Because it sort of not as much goes against my beliefs, but it goes against the way I'm comfortable of expressing myself.
Right. Yeah. They have to be able to connect it.
Yeah.
Connect themselves to it. Yeah.
And let's face it, a lot of rock pop music has rather prolific language.
Yeah. That's true.
And I'm so glad that we still have kids that sort of tend to that.
Yeah.
That stop and say, hold on.
Isn't that a great thing to observe?
It is great, because we always see the others.
Well, yeah, it's easy. Again, our generation, it's so easy to think, oh, God, these millennials, they don't know how to think for themselves. They don't know how to think, period. Oh, they suck.
Yeah.
Well, some of them do, and some of that is just us being old.
But I think
But there's a lot of creativity there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of inspiration there. There's a lot of soul, heart and soul in those kids.
And there's a lot of people thinking more than they should.
Yes.
To be honest, more
True.
than we.
Yeah.
I wish
True.
more of our generation have thought more than we should. To be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna jump on that bash on the youth today.
No, well, and we
bag,
can also
because
turn
it's-
it around on ourselves.
Yeah.
As educators, if we think that our students suck, then really we're saying we suck as an educator, because it's our responsibility to put the knowledge in front of them in such a way that they become engaged. Am I right?
I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I'm leaning towards that phrase. It takes a village.
Okay.
I'm
on that too.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking as a teacher that holds the attention of a kid for an hour
Yeah.
a week. There's only so much I can do in that period of time.
That's true.
But if the kid comes with like the values and the ideas from home, we can build on that.
Sure,
we can sort of we can polish those.
Yeah, I'm not saying a teacher, it's their responsibility to make a child think, but it is the teacher's responsibility to put it in front of them.
Yeah. To nurse it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To nurse what's there, to nurse the potential that's already there.
For sure.
I'll backpedal a little bit and say it that way. It's a teacher's responsibility to, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's good. Should we call it quits? Do we have what we need?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was a great discussion regardless.
Yeah.
Who cares what other people need? We got something. No,
Yeah.
no, I think
that's
it was
true.
a great discussion. I love talking about music. I'm definitely a music lover.
I think we need to be doing this more often.
You know where I live, my man.
Yeah, I do.
And
I'm going to bring my own microphone then.
yeah, you didn't like my mic. But how does it sound now?
I'm getting used to it.
See, I think I just
Sounds
gotten
amazing.
used to my settings and everything. But again, I'm going to do a couple of things in post production.
Just for fun one, I'm going to bring my own microphone.
You should do that.
Just to see what happens.
I want to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, I am far from a sound expert. If I could be better at something musically, it would be that engineering production thing. You know, I know what sounds good on an equalizer, for example, but I don't know the mechanics of it. Like if somebody says, yeah, well, with a kick drum, you should be thinking at this many hertz is where you need to. I
Does
don't
it
know
sound
that.
good?
I don't.
Yeah.
Well, see, but
okay.
that's.
Yeah.
I feel like because I don't know those standardisms of the technical side of things that I'm missing.
The terminology.
But part of it is because I sit here by myself.
Yeah.
It's
you get super used to, well, and it brings me to one of my sort of favorite phrases, because I'm fortunate enough. I'm not like the best sound engineer around. I'm not by any means, but I'm fortunate enough to have ears that coincide with a lot of other people's ears.
Yeah.
And that's the way I see it. When I do sound, I'm trying to get to the point where I am happy with it and I'm pleased, and I put a lot of my musicianship into it. And
but how's your hearing?
Well, no, I think it's good actually. The kids at school hate me for it. Yeah, they always try to challenge me. They're whispering in the back. So I say that don't whisper, and I'm gonna hear you. And they're always sort of testing me out. And I'm like, so every day, how did you hear that? And I'm like, I don't know.
But see, I have some significant hearing loss, and I think that also makes me very unsure of my production skills when it comes to sounds. So,
But I think as long as you know of it, as long as you are aware of it, you can always work around it.
Well, when I've sent my self-produced songs out for mastering, I've never had anyone send them back and say, man, this mix sucks.
No.
I can't work with this. So I've never had that happen, so I must be doing it right. But I'm just so unsure because I'm always by myself. I don't work with anyone else on that side of things. So it makes me a little unsure, but I guess I'm doing the right thing. Like I say,
I think everyone is. I hate sitting by myself in my studio. Well,
really?
Yeah. Even though
I'm kind of protective of myself. At the same time as I say, I feel like I'm missing out because I'm not doing more collaborations. I'm also very secure in that because I'm kind of insular. I'm kind of protective.
But I admire you for that because you're real like you. You are true to what you believe in, and you go with that. And I'm starting to do that. I've always done that, but
I've watched you grow into it.
Yeah,
I watched you go from Mudrod, more of a band thing, to this thing with Elderwoods, which is more of your vision. And I've watched you. I've watched you grow into this new role.
For sure.
I love seeing it.
And I talked to Henning about this yesterday, speaking of. And that's the thing. This is, and it all boils down to this one session that I had in the studio. Yeah. And I sent this song to him and said, do you want to be a part of this? And we went, and you are the guy who sort of convinced me that, well, this is good. Yeah. I really do like what you're doing here. Yep. And that sort of gave me the I wouldn't say confidence, but probably confidence to sort of stick to it and just say, you know what, whatever happens, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
And it led me to the point that I'm doing it and creating new songs and putting music out there. And I'm listening to other people, but I'm more...
You're staying true to your vision.
Yeah. Yeah. I know where I know what I want. Yeah. And that brings me back to that whole start of this discussion. Me and Ronnie in the studio, and he goes with his Latin American samba rhythm into my music. And most people would probably love that because it gives flavor and something new.
Right.
But at the same time, I go, okay, if you take all of those notes and you remove 90% of them and just put everything on the toms and the kick, what do you get?
That's what you're looking for.
And then you have that space, that room, that mellowness that sort of brings that whole notion of what I call Northern music.
Right. It's very thin, and yet that within that thinness is a lot of expression.
Yeah.
There's no extra note. There's no filler notes.
No. When it's needed, they are there, but
it's not excessive.
On the bigger picture, it is. I want to keep it like on a low note.
Yeah.
I want the words and the music and the details to be able to speak.
You know what that reminds me of? one of my all-time favorite albums is Neil Young's Harvest Moon from 1990.
You know I love Neil Young.
92?
Yes.
Yeah, that's my guy. I love him. And I saw an interview with Neil after that album was released, and the interviewer was commenting how it was such a drastic swing away from the loudness of his Weld tour, which was all feedback and his old black Gibson and all that stuff. And then he just took it all the way down, and here's Harvest Moon.
Yeah.
Very, very thinly produced. Every instrument is just, I almost picture them literally leaning back, and it's just so laid back and still and quiet.
Yeah.
And Neil commented something about the keyboardist, Spooner Oldham is his name. He's actually a Nashville legend, Stax Records legend. Played on a lot of Aretha Franklin stuff. And then the interviewer said, keyboards, I don't hear any keyboards on those songs. And Neil Young said, exactly. He said, you can barely hear, and you say you can't hear Spooner on any of these songs. But if I were to take him away, there would be a big void there.
Yeah.
And that is the feeling he was going for on that album. And I kind of get the feeling, you've spoken to me before about how the rhythm, you want the rhythm section to be. And I always think of that example with Neil Young and Spooner Oldham's keyboard playing. It's there. You can't hardly hear it, but it's there. And if it wasn't there, you would feel the emptiness.
That's true. That's such a great story.
I have so many of those Neil Young stories that inspire. And my music is nothing like Neil Young. I guess you can hear elements of it in my music, but his ethos, his philosophy, his the way he follows his muse is so inspiring to me. I just love that guy and everything he's done, everything.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You know, I don't love everything by Neil Young, but I do love the simplicity of Neil Young.
Yes, yeah.
The way he creates room for himself and the band, and when he does, and that change is amazing.
And you did a beautiful version of Helpless.
Oh,
by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last weekend.
That's one of my favorite songs.
And there's a song in simplicity.
It is.
I'm sorry, a lesson in simplicity. It's just 3 chords.
I'm just going to end this session with a shout out to a band that sort of really pushed my tolerance button, put it like that. It's a band called The Sweethearts, Oslo-based Americana thing. It's guitar, piano, slide guitar, vocals, and that was a tormenting lesson of waiting. To be able to play in a way that, that's what I was playing the gig, and I was in my head, I was going, I need to slow down. I need to wait. I need to have room, because I did a sound for them the week before, and I was standing there, I was listening to them, and they were, the way they sort of just waited out everything. It was so mellow, so low, and so nice, and so beautiful that it's sort of, and that has everything to do about understanding what you're doing, to putting your music into a context and
Well, quietness, space, air, at times seems like it's a lost art in modern music.
Yeah.
So the bands, the artists who actually employ those things in their music, you notice it.
Yeah.
It's different.
Absolutely.
Different feeling.
Let's leave it on that note.
Listen, everybody, this gentleman right here, Raymond Olsen, he's a good friend of mine. I love this guy to death. It's my fault that we don't hang out more. I'm the one it's me. It's my fault. But you have a standing invitation to always come on this show to talk about music, to talk about whatever you want to talk about. I will always help you to promote whatever you have going on. So something big happens, come on and let's talk about it, and I'll put it out there to my viewers and listeners, and maybe get you get you a few extra
Yeah.
followers on
Followers,
your
that would be fantastic.
to show up at your show. You
Yeah.
need to. You just need to know that that's an open invitation.
Oh well, maybe we'll do a live gig kind of thing. The way we talked about that would be really cool.
That, and
to bring
you know,
in
the
a
whole
couple
thing with
guys.
my radio station has been put on hold for now.
Yeah.
And that's for health reasons. This whole thing with my arm and stuff. That's why I haven't started the radio station. I just need to get healthier with this shoulder and this arm. But eventually my radio station is going to be up and running. I would love to have you and the guys come in. You see, we have room to do it acoustically.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
We just mic everybody up and off we go.
Yeah.
And have a live performance for the radio thing and for the podcast.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So we haven't done that. That's the really cool thing about this Elderwoods project. We have one song that is recorded and released, but we have like 15 songs and growing.
They played for 2 hours last Saturday, so you guys have a full show.
Yeah, thank you.
So I would love to give you guys 2 hours of mic time on my show.
Oh,
and we just think about how fun that would be. We laugh and joke in between songs, and then you guys play for a while, and then we laugh and
just
joke
talk
some
about
more.
stories about the song.
That invitation is there, so we're just
I'm gonna
we're
hold
gonna
you
make
to
that.
that.
We're gonna make that happen.
That'd be
Do it right here.
That'd be super cool.
I want to tell everybody thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Remember, you can go to my website, johnallenpod.com. That's where you'll see all the work that I do. You'll also see in the description of this episode, whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're listening on a podcast platform, you'll see several links that you can click on to send me any contributions that you would like to send in order to support the work that I do. It's greatly appreciated. I can't do this stuff without you. Well, I can, I guess. It's more fun to do it with your support. I'll put it to you that way. So I appreciate you guys' support. Isn't that true?
That's true.
We try to act like we don't want support, but we do. And it's more fun when we are supported.
We want people to like us.
I want you all to go out there and love, be loved, and enjoy the process. Take care of yourselves and everybody around you. Thanks now.